Hi, this is Jeff Hamilton. We're going to do a video today on replacing the horizontal seal that goes along the top of the slide out. Should be the same type of seal as the ones that go vertically here. There's some deterioration to this one too. I'm going to be replacing these at a later time. But the one on the top here, it's got some pretty bad tears in it, so I want to go ahead and get that replaced so that there's not any water intrusion into the motor home. This is a 2015 Entegra Aspire 44B floor plan. The seal should be similar for all Entegra coaches, but I would definitely check with the parts department at Entegra before you proceed. They can get you a part number and supply you with the correct seal. The flapper seal along the top of the slide out that's starting to deteriorate and separate there in the middle, as you can see with the gap. I've replaced this topper recently, so I know how to take this topper apart. So the plan is to remove the cover, take the slide out topper, flip it over onto the roof over here. That way I've got clear access to remove the seal. It's got a wedged shape in the middle of the seal there, so this will actually push up along a piece of metal that's in there. So you should be able to pull this whole slide seal out from the outside. Entegra recommends using some silicone sealant when you're putting the new seal in, so you can wedge it up in there. They say you can even use a couple of screws if you need to. I'm going to try not to use screws. I don't want screw heads penetrating the bulb seal here in this area here, so I think I'm going to wedge it up in there, and then I may use some little blocks underneath the seal to hold it up until the sealant's dry, like some shims. I'll show you some more video here in a minute once I get the slide out topper pulled off. Okay, this is the view of the slide out seal from the inside of the slide out. I'm going to leave this slide out partially extended here so that I can work from both sides if I have to. The only issue with working on from the inside is the wooden trim up here. There's not a whole lot of space for you to get your arm behind here, so I don't want to mess with taking apart the trim or messing with the back inside of the slide out, so I'm going to do most of my work from the outside. Okay, this slide out topper has an end cap on either end, and there are two screws that you use to loosen and remove the cover. I wouldn't recommend removing the cover by yourself, but what you can do is remove the top screw, loosen the lower screw here, and it'll allow it to just fall back this way. That way it doesn't fall off and scratch your coach. Once we get the cover back, you'll need to take this screw out as well and back it all the way out. That will allow this end of the roller to pop out of the slot. The other end, it'll just pull right out. It's got a mechanism in there that keeps it from coming out. But that's what you do to get that off. Okay, the top Allen screw there is backed out to where you can flip the cover back. I'm going to leave the bottom screw in a little bit further here that you can put in this hole right here. And that's you'll have to take the tension off the top here, and it'll line up with a hole. Once you put a Carter pin in there, you can lift out this whole awning from the other side. There's a screw holding it in, but there's a cradle on this side, so once you pull it out from the other side, it'll pull right out, and then you can take the whole topper and flip it back over onto the roof here and get it out of your way. You can see I've gently pushed the tarp down. That took the tension off the roller here. There's the cotta pin right here. Once this roller rolls forward this way, it aligned up with the hole on the inside, so now there's plenty of slack in here. So now I can go down to the other end. There's a retaining screw down there for the other end of the roller. Once you pull that retaining screw out of the end cap, you should be able to pull that end out, and then this end here will pull out as well. It just slides, it'll slide right out. Allen screw here that holds this end of the slide out topper in place. Once it's backed all the way out, this will lift right out of the top here. You can feel it moving here. And I've got the slide out roughly about a foot, maybe a little less than that, just so I have enough slack on the topper here so that it can lay back on top of the roof, and you've got enough room to do that. So I'm gonna pull the topper back now. Okay, with the slide out topper removed from the outside edge here, you can see that I've got the cover just retracted back. The lower two screws are one at each end is still what's holding this in place. I'm going to try to replace this seal without having to take this all the way off, just because it's a pain in the butt if there's only one of you here, getting the holes lined up properly without this thing dropping down and scratching the side of the coach. But I think there's plenty of room here for me to work in and get this out. But as you can see here, the bulb seal itself is completely split open, and then the flapper is partially retracted here, and you can see that the flapper's got a big split in it here, so it's really just in bad shape. So I'm gonna try to pull this down and get it out of here. Okay. As you can see here, I started from the back end here, and once you pull this inner part here out, the whole seal will pull down here, and you can see it's kind of split here. That may have been from Entegra. They say to cut the end open just a little bit. It allows this thing to overlap the side seal here a little bit, so you get a better seal. So that's probably why it's split right there. But as you can see, once you get this out, it pulls out pretty dang easy. And I'm not really even seeing on this one any signs of sealant on the inside. So it looks like they were able to just shove it up in there. But you can see there's a metal lip right here that the seal slides up in and attaches to. Get a little bit better angle there. So, but I am going to put some black RTV in here and shove it up in there and get it to seal or to dry real good before I close everything up. Okay. All right, so the seal pulls right out very easily. You need to make sure you note how far the seal extends over the edge of the slide out here. As you can see, this is the end of the flapper here. It's deteriorated. This slit that they cut here, that was done on purpose, again, because it overlaps the seal on the side there. It just helps it have a little bit better seal. But as you can see, the bulb goes all the way to the edge. There's probably about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch gap on the end here. But you want to make sure that you don't cut your seal too short. So make sure that it goes end to end and overlaps. Once I get it out, before I put the new seal in, I'll show you how it gets cut and everything so that it goes in properly. Okay, now that you see that the seal is out, you can see there's some black RTV residue along the edge here. It looks like they just ran a bead along the inside and ran it down. They may even interrupt it and have, different gaps here. It doesn't appear that it's 100% continuous all the way down. There may be, looks like it may actually be a continuous bead, but once that thing gets shoved up in there, it lays this stuff out really thin in there. So I'm going to do the same thing. It's adhered well, so I don't think there's any need to go scrape all the old RTV off. So I'm going to prep the new seal now. Okay, this is the old seal that I've got off of the coach now, and you can see that there's what appears to be clear coat or polyurethane. I have a feeling it's probably the top coat, that was got overspray on this from the factory when they did the paint. I don't know, I'm not the original owner of the coach, so it could have been someone did some touch up at one point on the coach. But anyway, there's stuff on this seal that should not be here, and I think that's what's caused some of the premature failure of the seal here. This is the part that slides up over the metal there. You can see the residue of where some of the RTV silicone is. So the plan is just to cut the new seal to the exact length this one is, apply some new RTV in there, shove it up in there, and wedge it up in there with some shims just to hold it until the glue dries or the RTV dries thoroughly, and then it should be good to go. Okay, so this is the new seal. This is the end of it. As you can see from the view here, the flap kind of tends to bend one direction, so I'm going to use that to where this is going to be the leading edge on that slide, so it'll bend this way, and so when the slide is all the way out, this is out, and it'll provide a little bit of downward pressure, I would think, on the top of the slide instead of going this way where it'll kind of bow up on it. So I'm going to start doing it like that. I've trimmed this up so it's fairly straight. There is some metal in the end of this thing. It actually has a C-channel at the bottom of this part here that has metal in it to hold it in place. Let me show you the other end of it. As you can see, this is a C, and it's solid here. So when you wedge this up in there, these things kind of interlock on that piece of metal that this shoves up around. And I'm going to use some sealant, just some black silicone sealant to just hold it in place. That's what Entegra recommended. Also, you'll need to, on this other end here, you'll need to split the end open like I did here. That's so the seal can slide over the other seal so they overlap one another. That'll provide a better seal. That's just the way they did it on the old seal, so I'm duplicating that. It also mentioned that in the document that Entegra sent me on how to install these. You're gonna need, I use scissors to cut this, and then you have to use some dikes right here to cut through the metal, that's the reinforced metal that's in the rubber here. I've also got some tin snips here. So whatever you can do. I cut on the side of this flap here, so I didn't want to interfere with the rubber here on this flap at all, so I cut just to the outside of that flap on that side. And that's on that'd be on the back side of where the seal is going to be, so it's going to sit like that. So I'll show you more once I get up on the coach and start to install it. You can see I got the new gasket started here. It's slid on the end here, so it's V'd on either side of the piece of metal that's running vertically under here. I still haven't trimmed the end of the seal here. It needs to have a slit probably about 1.5 inches from the end here, so this will lay flat on the end like that and provide a better seal. What I'm having to do is I'll run a bead of silicone for about 12 inches, and then I'll carefully press it up in there and make sure it's all the way seated in the bottom. And then I'll get some more silicone inside the groove here. I'll do about another 12 inches, then I'll install it and just keep working my way all the way down to the other end. I didn't trim the other end because I wanted to make sure everything sealed up properly and was seated properly, and I didn't want to run out of gasket, so I'll just cut it to the exact length once I get to the other end of the slide out here. Okay, I'm a little more than halfway done. As you can see, this is the rubber, the outer part of the rubber seal here. It pushes up over that metal just fine. When you're pushing in, you want to make sure that it's going up on either side of the piece of metal, and you just want to push up underneath like that to seal it, to make sure it seats at the bottom. Right now the seal is pushed all the way towards the inside of the coach right now, so I've got room to get my hands under there and work and to make sure it goes up. Once I get it all the way in, I'm going to go check on the inside to make sure the seal is consistent on the inside where it comes up vertically over the metal. And as you can see here, this is where I'm still working on it, and you can see the exposed metal down at the other end where I haven't slid the seal up on it yet. As you can see, it's got a nice seam all the way across. Everything's nice and flush. This is the outside of the new gasket here. And then I cut my slit in the end that allows the side gasket to come out through here. That's how the other slides are done. It'll make a nice seal once I pull the slide all the way out, because it'll flip the gasket out this way. So I'm going to take you on the inside now and show you what it looks like on the inside. Here's a look from the seal on the inside of the coach. As you can see, it's right up at the top of the edge like it's supposed to. It runs almost all the way to the end here. I'll probably put some extra silicone there just to hold this end down a little bit, and then I gotta trim the flap here so it stops at the edge of the slide out. But it's going in nice and straight. So I'm pretty happy with the way the seal seated itself. It's all staying really nice and straight. It's not trying to sag or drop down anywhere. So I don't think I'm going to need to block it with shims or anything underneath, but if you have any issues, you can always put some shims under here to help hold it up, but it's solid. So I'm just going to go ahead and button this thing back up and call it done. So you want to make sure you put it back the way you got it when you took it apart. Make sure the slack is about the same as the way it was before you start screwing everything back together. Okay, I've got the topper reinstalled into the track. Be sure when you put it back in the track, you install the screw in the middle of the end cap over there that holds the retainer for the other end there, and then just put the screws back in for each of the end caps, and that'll hold the cover on, and you should be good to go. Make sure you remove the cotter pin before you button everything back up, so that it puts the tension back on the topper here. But that ought to do it. Okay, it's the next day, and caulk is all set, so I extended the slide fully out. Everything looks nice and smooth and flat. So overall, I think everything turned out really well. Thanks for watching.